For the past decade, thousands of Redditors have been attempting to create a utopian island nation. No longer under any other jurisdiction, they were to be ruled by a benevolent king, replacing primitive fiat for their much more valuable upvotes and Reddit gold. This is the true story of Reddit Island. Despite the serious nature of the concept, the origins of Reddit Island were unconventional to say the least. Born from a misunderstanding in a YouTube comment section, on June 28, 2007, a video was uploaded to YouTube titled RC Car, Boat, Plane, Hydrofoam. The video features a small remote-controlled vehicle, which is capable of flying like a plane, floating like a boat, and driving like a car. This video would go for some time without major notoriety, until it somehow found its way to the front page of Reddit.com, nearly 3 years later in 2010. A quick glance at the comment section shows a handful of users indicating they had been brought there from the website, and greeting fellow Redditors who also made the journey. The original uploader also acknowledges being on the front page, which they admitted had excited them greatly. However, one confused user speaks up and asks the other commenters, "Where's this Reddit everyone's coming from? I'm from England." Many Redditors found this comment humorous, as the commenter mistook a well-established website for some kind of foreign country or territory. Most would have simply moved on, but Redditors saw the high potential of this heckin' sweet me Marino, sparking an ingenious idea. Discussions began regarding the prospect of making Reddit a real place. Due to the difficulty of purchasing an entire town, many proposed the idea of buying an uninhabited island. That way, all they had to do was crowdfund the necessary cash. One user, Red Die Number 4, found a website that sold private islands, stumbling upon one with a $220,000 price tag that was located off the coast of San Francisco. However, he was corrected by another commenter who pointed out that the island was not in San Francisco. Rather, it was 2.5 hours east in a, quote, shithole delta. An alternative was also offered in the form of Red Rock Island, this time actually located in San Francisco Bay. While this island was, in their own words, way more awesome than the first, its $22 million price tag made it virtually impossible. Another user suggested the Principality of Sealand. Located off the southeastern coast of England, Sealand was originally built during World War II as a naval fortress to guard the nearby port in Essex. In 1956, the British government removed all full-time personnel that were stationed there, and a decade later, ownership of the tower was usurped by a squatter named Paddy Roy Bates. The British government eventually attempted to remove Paddy and his son Michael from the fort, resulting in the two being arrested, although the courts threw out the case, as they did not have jurisdiction beyond the territorial waters of Britain. Now, a dying Paddy Roy Bates was attempting to sell the territory through an eBay listing, although due to the price being in the hundreds of millions, and the fort barely being large enough for more than a few people, the idea was quickly scrapped. Clearly, a lot more planning was needed to achieve their utopia, so future residents created a brand new subreddit to discuss the project, r/Reddit Island. Early discussions offer more potential places to colonize, while others suggest different types of infrastructure to add to their new territory, including a Reddit statue and a Reddit town hall. Of course, a governing body and electoral system was the first priority, which received plenty of excellent ideas. I'm thinking it would operate like a direct democracy, with upvotes being the main indicator of the will of the people. Those who hold office would be above a certain karma threshold, as well as propose policy measures. Say about 66% of people would have to like it. We could organize districts on the island along the lines of subreddits, and the capital could function as a front page of sorts. Although, as one user pointed out, this idea was really stupid, considering how easy it would be to use alt accounts and bots to cast fraudulent votes. Discussions like these show the difference in perspective of Reddit Island's founding fathers. Some believe that the point of their operation was to simply name an island Reddit, thus technically making it a real place that exists on Earth. However, there are others who dreamt of actually living on the island and forming a society based around the website and its core values. Those core values mainly consisting of atheism and smoking weed. Either way, they would still need to locate a suitable island and secure funding. Some users listed how much they'd be willing to personally invest in the project, with many putting down about $500. That said, money alone isn't enough, and an immense amount of planning was needed to achieve their goal. One user fully lays out the steps they need to take. "We really need to get away from all the nonsense and memes and stuff and approach this seriously, if it is meant to be taken seriously. A venture like this would require lawyers, escrow, insurance, banks, licensing, tax implications, liability, investors, partners, assets/liabilities. None of the stakeholders are interested in hearing about karma or alien-shaped anything. If we do buy a boat, can we call it the Intrepid Narwhal? Others clearly disagreed that figuring out the potential red tape of purchasing an entire island was a priority, and attempted to redirect focus back to something much more important. I think we should welcome our connection with Reddit as something to be proud of, not to be ashamed. A memorable statue wouldn't mean that we would buy the island to put it up there, but as a token of gratitude for Reddit, that it let us meet and pursue our dreams together. So the island would be for us and others like-minded, and the statue as an ode to history. Many were brought to tears by this Redditor's profound words, and they continued to discuss other important topics, like how to get on the front page of Reddit, and who they would declare war on. Few upvotes were spared for the genuine attempts at planning, as less important decisions clogged the subreddit's top posts. While some involved clearly didn't give this plan the serious attention it deserved, it is undeniable that the most active community members spent hours drafting long-winded effort posts regarding finding islands, determining the necessary infrastructure, and securing funding. They even drafted a makeshift constitution, with a few amendments including no fat chicks and weed can be smoked anywhere. One user even suggested a decently good idea, locating a wealthy Redditor with enough cash to foot half the bill, who would allow the users of Reddit to occasionally party on their island, in exchange for crowdfunding the other half. This way, issues of land distribution no longer mattered, as the idea of creating a society is completely thrown out the window. One scholar disagrees, however, claiming that 1,000 Redditors living on a small island at the same time would actually be awesome, and he's right. For example, the first island suggested, with a price tag of $220,000, came with 18 acres of land. This means it would take 440 Redditors paying $500 in exchange for less than 1,800 square feet of land, including areas unsuitable for homes and before any infrastructure is built. This sounds extremely pleasant and totally awesome, as the Redditor claimed it would be. Quite similar to Section 8 housing, the Redditors would be afforded the luxury of living in a cramped apartment building with no electricity, running water, or air conditioning. Relatively decent living conditions were hardly of any concern, however, with more pressing issues rising to the surface, as the community realized that the island would be full of fat, antisocial male Redditors, with no female population to speak of. This raised the risk of a Redditor population collapse, as there would be no female companions to breed with. The main counter-argument given was the fact that any self-respecting, intelligent woman of value would forego all personal standards if it meant hanging out on a private island full of genius Redditors. Others proposed ordering Russian brides, kidnapping prostitutes, or simply having gay sex with each other. Those uninitiated to the movement would trickle in over time, ultimately confused by the concept and why a Reddit island even needed to exist. Within this thread, there is a wide array of answers: a place for like-minded individuals, contributing to a collective cause, and that the island was a potentially sound investment. Of course, none of these comments reflect the original motivations for creating the island, that being making Reddit into a real, physical place. Weeks went by with little progress being made, thanks in part to the unquantifiable number of threads making extremely good suggestions that were worth considering. Posts eventually devolved into people offering to perform services in place of cash, despite the fact that they needed money to buy the island. After over a month of planning, the Redditors finally began getting their priorities in order and ironing out the more crucial details. Slogan contest. Post your slogan here. The winner will get a Reddit t-shirt. Notable suggestions for the Reddit island slogan include: "Here be narwhals, surrounded by water, surrounded by awesome, and perhaps the most beautiful, aliens, narwhals, bacon, and now sunsets." Believe it or not, other logistical issues were still yet to be figured out, albeit less important things, such as what island they were actually going to buy and how they were going to buy it. Luckily, the community had an IRC chat meeting prepared, in which the group's greatest minds could finally come up with a solution. While it's unknown what took place, posts to the subreddit began slowing down after the meeting, with future posts indicating no tangible progress had been made. After 2 months of hard work, with nearly no progress, or even remote semblance of a plan, frustration began to grow amongst the community. Some users began doubting the ability to actually see the project to fruition, citing the lack of a concrete plan, and highlighting the amount of people fantasizing about ultimately worthless novelties. Further attempts came to revitalize the subreddit, but seemingly nothing could motivate fat, lazy Redditors to actually do anything. Almost 1 year later, a user posted a new thread titled "Time to Get Serious," in which he lists a hypothetical dollar amount based on word-of-mouth pledges given by random strangers online. This post seemed to spark a new wave of activity. However, one hater pointed out that any island they buy could only be inhabited by a small group of people, with no running water, internet, or basic infrastructure. This post called into question everything they had spent the past year planning. One of the founding moderators, Red Die Number 4, added to this thread with their own personal suggestion on how to reorganize and move forward. That being, everyone throwing out random ideas on the subreddit, despite this method being the entire reason why the last year has been completely stagnant. But it was sure to work this time. Out poured a wave of extremely helpful suggestions, like the creation of a Reddit Island video game and the prospect of utilizing nuclear power plants on the island. For whatever reason, this second wind lost its wings, and the subreddit once again began to die out. It became so barren, in fact, that bot accounts began posting threads that were completely unrelated to anything remotely close to the prospect of a Reddit island. And aside from a compelling post suggesting that Joe Rogan be elected to the position of head shaman, nothing more of note would come from this subreddit. Although an article was released by Gawker in 2012, over 2 years after the subreddit's initial creation, which discussed the horrifying concept of an island full of Redditors. There are few places on Earth I could imagine wanting to spend time less than a remote island populated solely by hundreds of hardcore users of the social media site Reddit. So when I learned of the plan to create Reddit Island, a real-life nerd Shangri-La, I had to see how close my nightmare was to becoming a reality. The article's creator, Adrian Chen, was clearly a jealous hater and a loser, although he was willing to shine a light on the heroes who tried to bring this project to fruition, such as an anonymous young man from Israel who called Reddit Island a dream. When asked why he no longer wanted to live in Israel, he had little to say about the country's controversial treatment of Palestinians or forced military service. Rather, he appealed to an exponentially more important issue: not being able to smoke weed. This feels like an important time to acknowledge that Reddit Island and Israel share many characteristics. Much like the Jewish people in the wake of World War II, the Reddit community lives in constant fear of exile and discrimination. It is argued by some that Redditors require their own homeland to ensure their safety and ethnic preservation, although this raises concerns about the colonization of said homeland and the potential displacement of those who had previously lived there. Following this to its logical conclusion, it is possible that the creation of Reddit Island could spark an equally deadly geopolitical nightmare. After years of failed attempts to get the ball rolling, the Reddit Island subreddit is officially locked by its moderation team. For years now, the subreddit has been quite abandoned, while still getting a ton of spam and off-topic joke posts. We mods decided maybe it's a good idea to just disable new posts, essentially freeze it in time, and keep the subreddit as an archive of what was once dreamed possible. Over half a dozen years, there have been many attempts to revitalize the idea. Unfortunately, none of them gathered enough momentum. But we hope this subreddit inspired some people to think out of the box, feel the potential power of many people undertaking a mission together, working in unison towards a common goal. Who knows? Maybe one day, somewhere, somebody actually manages to crowdfund the buying of a private island in order to turn it into a self-sufficient mix of vacation and rental homes. But unfortunately, time has shown it is not our subreddit that does this. The dream was dead. Due to a lack of clear direction and willingness to do any actual work, Reddit Island hadn't come to fruition, and many moved on with their lives, assuming that Reddit Island could never be. That was until over 10 years after the original subreddit's creation, when a glimmer of hope shined down on the Reddit community. If Redditors wanted to, they would join together and buy an island for a meme. This hilarious Spider-Man meme would be the catalyst of the second Reddit Island subreddit, which was distinguished by the addition of an underscore in its name. Much has changed since the last project, as the internet was a far different place than it was 10 years prior.
These nuts.
And with an archive of the previous subreddit's attempts, this new group should have a solid reference point of what not to do. Most importantly, however, were the intentions of the group. The original objective was to create a physical place named Reddit as a gag. However, as time went on, the goal became less clear, as people lost focus and became captivated by creating a full-blown Reddit society. The new Reddit Island group had done away with any vagueness in regards to their plan, that being the creation of a utopia. Some were even willing to do away with the Reddit brand rebranding altogether, with a good chunk of users referring to their soon-to-be paradise as Meme Land. Despite these differences, the second group fell into many of the same pitfalls as the first, such as endless posts about what the island should be called.
Island McIsland, the People's Democratic Republic of Reddit Redemption, Underdeveloped Archipelago.
Potential flag designs.
May I suggest our motto be, "In Keanu we trust"?
The island's national anthem. And of course, the legality of smoking weed. The potential Reddit island currency was also discussed, with Reddit coins pulling out a strong win in a Democratic vote. Long-winded effort posts were once again present, with people genuinely trying to solve problems and get the project moving. Although most people were more invested in discussions revolving around which Keanu Reeves flag was more epic. That's not to say that productive and important conversations weren't being had, such as the prospective leader of their new free society. The most popular choice was Elon Musk, serving as their president and commander-in-chief. Elon Musk was ultimately the best chance they had at securing a Reddit island, as he was a billionaire capable of wasting money on whatever they wanted, and perhaps just retarded enough to do it. With enough memes and spam posting, the subreddit actually managed to catch the attention of the South African genius, with him reaching out to one of the moderators to potentially discuss logistics. It appears that the username in question, Elon Musk Official, traces back to an authentic Elon Musk-owned Reddit account, which meant that this was the real deal. Despite excitement in the comment section, it wouldn't be until a month later that it was revealed the whole thing had been a sham. For whatever reason, the mod who claimed to be speaking to Elon used Inspect Element to change the name of a different username to one owned by Elon Musk. The moderator in question defended themselves, claiming the situation had been a, quote, technical glitch, although this excuse was not accepted by the broader community, and their moderation status was revoked. It was back to the drawing board for the Reddit 2.0 project, and through a sea of worthless suggestions and fantasies came a real genuine solution. Why go for the financial route when you can go for the diplomatic one? Pitcairn Island is our best bet. It's a self-governing British protectorate in the middle of the Pacific, with a population of 50 that is actively paying people to move there. If we were to send 100 to 150 people to live on the island, we could easily gain control of it via votes, as it holds democratic elections for its leaders. Also, the UN has demanded for the island's independence, so we could easily get international recognition. For those unaware, Pitcairn Island, better known as Adamstown, is the sole inhabited island in the Greater Pitcairn Islands. Despite being a British-owned territory, the island is located in the South Pacific Ocean, nearly equidistant between Australia and South America. Due to the lack of an airport, travel by plane is impossible, meaning the only way to access the area is by boat. The isolated nature of the island has created many challenges for those who inhabit it, most notable being a 2004 lawsuit in which 7 men faced 55 different charges relating to sexual abuse. In 2004, the population of the island was a total of 65 people, which means that 10% of the entire population was put on trial for these crimes. This means that Redditors wanted to move to an isolated island full of rapists, with no internet, for the sole intention of flooding their ballot boxes with votes to elect a new leader, possibly Keanu Reeves or Elon Musk, who would then legislatively change the name of the island to Reddit Island. Despite all of these glaring issues and pointless hurdles, this suggestion would be one of the subreddits most popular, garnering thousands of upvotes. Further ideation was lacking, to say the least, as most people wanted to spend their time creating an entire Reddit language and alphabet. One user suggested simply using English, likely due to it being the most common language spoken on Reddit. However, they were promptly downvoted. Despite the lack of progress thus far, this attempt at Reddit Island has already been significantly more successful, due in part to the user base reaching 25,000 after only 4 days. That said, most of the users were there to shitpost or spitball ideas that wouldn't get them any closer to their goal. They needed a miracle, and it came in the form of a messiah. Island owner here. Throwaway account for privacy reasons. I've been reading about your attempts to buy either an island or a town, and I think I might be able to help you guys out. I own a small island, about 120 acres, that my grandfather purchased about 40 years ago. As of right now, I only have a small cabin built on it, and it's been a dream of mine to build a community there for several years now. If you guys are willing to help fund any construction or legal costs, I'd be happy to help set up a self-sufficient society of Redditors there. The main roadblock throughout both Reddit Island subreddits was determining which island to select. Now, with this anonymous island owner, the hard part was already figured out for them, with the main focus now being on crowdfunding the money required to build their society. Despite some being skeptical, the owner was quickly made a subreddit mod, and shortly posted a follow-up message, stating their intentions to start small and build up the community over time, with getting running water on the island being the first order of business. They also acknowledge pending building permits and state their island is located in Cuba. They close off the post with their PayPal email and request donations from anyone interested in helping fund the project. Some were still apprehensive and requested proof that they did in fact own an island. Thankfully, they returned a few days later with receipts, specifically in the form of a property title. This was enough proof for some users to begin donating over PayPal, although there were a few minor issues. Most apparent is the fact that the provided document is in English, despite the native language of Cuba being Spanish. On top of that, photos provided were readily accessible online, meaning anybody could have posted them. To make matters worse, Cuba, a country well known for its communist governance structure, did not allow private land ownership until 2019. Later that same day, the moderation staff posted a tragic update. It has come to the attention of the mod team that u/islandowneralt was scamming members of this subreddit. Because of this, we are no longer going to be using their island. We have since banned him from the subreddit, and we recommend anyone who has donated him money should request a chargeback on PayPal. If anybody asks you to donate money anywhere else besides the official GoFundMe, they are lying. Many thanks. In a final message posted by the scammer, he simply says, "Thanks for your money, suckers." Some were furious at this imposter, threatening to take legal action against him in long-winded diatribes, with one user in particular calling him a window-licking retard. Clearly, an insult like this is in bad faith, as it requires someone of deep intellect to be able to successfully trick users of Reddit into sending them money. Others, however, celebrated his efforts, calling him a based Chad, and claiming that the people who sent him money were gullible morons. This was a serious blow to morale amongst the group. The island owner was a fraud. Elon Musk never messaged them, and they still hadn't even agreed on which Keanu flag to use. As you can imagine, posts began slowing down in the wake of this betrayal, as the novelty began to wear off, much like it did for the first project. While the previous subreddit remains as an untouched piece of internet history, the new subreddit seems to have become a place for anyone to visit and spit on the people who are simply following their dreams. This has only gotten worse, as it appears the moderation team has gone on strike after receiving backlash. Of course, there is the occasional user who joins the subreddit trying to reignite the flame, but their efforts are futile. The second Reddit Island subreddit has already taken the black pill. They would never have their utopia. One user even suggested that perhaps Reddit Island should just be Reddit itself, and thus, time ceased to be a straight line and transformed into a perfect circle. In the current day, the subreddit sees very little activity, filled with bot spam and random shitposts referencing a time long gone. The few hopeful stragglers that remained fled to a new subreddit, r/Reddit Island Reborn, which describes itself as a subreddit with the goal of buying and settling an island, something that is feasible if we work hard enough. It would seem they have misspelled the word goal. However, coal is also an apt description of the post made here. Much like the stories of Jesus, we often hear of miracles performed by Redditors, from random cancer diagnoses to cold case murder mysteries being solved. In a sense, if anyone could have overcome the task of crowdfunding an island, it should have been Reddit. However, it seemed too tall a task for even them to achieve. But that's not to say the dream is dead, as it seems every few years the concept finds its way back to the surface. For as long as the Reddit community is alive, so too is the dream of a Reddit island.